I think we'll make a start actually, because we've got an absolutely rammed agenda as ever. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And I don't know where the last month has gone. Christmas, New Year's come and gone, and in a flash, or I'm not sure if that's the right expression. Anyway, absolutely packed agenda this morning. We've got two main speakers. We've got Tor here from ECOsubsea, and we've got Jerry from Portsmouth International Port, and they're going to be talking to us about clean maritime, clean air, sort of ecology issues. And then we have two quick updates or requests for support, one from Fareham College that needs maritime employers support in a project that they're working on, and David's here from Southampton City College, who is also after your help really for an apprenticeship fair. So I think we always have a lot to get through in these meetings. I think we'll get cracking. We'll just keep letting people in as we go along. Kevin, shall I hand over to you to do a little bit of Maritime UK updates?
Yep, I'll make this. Good morning, everybody. I'll make this really brief. The main things that have happened within Maritime UK itself are, first of all, that there's been a transition of chair. So Harry has served his term and stood down, and the new chair of Maritime UK is Sarah Kenny, who's also the CEO of BMT, and Robin Mortimer is now the vice chair. So a little bit of a transition of the leadership. In terms of activity, as you would expect, and it's very much reflected actually in our agenda today, the environment and decarbonisation is one of the key agenda items. Diversity in maritime is another, and then careers and the development of training and career path for people coming into the industry is another area. So one thing I would draw your attention to, and I know Lorna's been advertising it, but through a combination of Maritime UK and DFT, there's £20 million has now been allocated for decarbonisation projects, and it's being, if you like, briefed or put out by region. So we have now set a date for Maritime UK Solent to have a webinar with the DFT, where basically we're seeking projects to put forward to bid for some of that 20 million of decarbonisation. And this is really about projects to start their applications rather than necessarily developing or the innovation of the technology. So I think that'll probably do, Lorna, given we have a very full agenda today, and I'll hand back to you to talk about any key items from the lab.
Okay, I'm going to pick that up later on in the meeting actually, but what I would just say is that we sent an email out the other day. Will sent an email out the other day with a bit of information about that Clean Maritime workshop. It's Wednesday the 27th of January between 1 and 2 p.m. We've got the DFT and Ben Murray, who's the director of Maritime UK, in on that workshop. Anyone locally that wants to join it can. I'll put I haven't got the Zoom link yet, I don't think, but I'll put the link to sign up for a place to register to come along to that workshop into the chat for everybody, if you want to access it that way, if you haven't already seen it in the email. We'd really like that money to come to the Solent naturally. So anyway, I'll do that later. I'll come back to the LEP updates later, because I'm just waiting for a little bit of information on one of them. So if we're okay, what I'd really like to do is to hand over to Tor, who's with us this morning, who is going to talk to us about his business, ECOsubsea. Tor, are you there? Are you ready to take over control of the screen?
Yes, I am, Lorna. Many thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. I see we're at 49 now, Lorna, so you're 54 is close. Vils is even closer with 51. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and we've had so much fun in the Solent, as was mentioned here with Kevin as well, with all the focus on the environment, we see that it is really the toughest challenge in the world or the planet has ever faced. But I think on the flip side of that, it is actually also the biggest opportunity that the world has ever seen in solving this and then bringing a better future for the generations ahead. So thank you very much for being invited, and I'll share my screen now. As always with these meetings, it's always interesting when you're doing a new move. So I'll just try that right now. Let me just see. So ECOSubsea, what that is about, it is actually an idea that me and my brother got 12 years ago after studying international shipping in Plymouth. And it was about being able to deliver an environmental friendly service to the shipping industry that would contribute to the green shift that shipping has ahead. I have added a little movie clip that can give a brief introduction to actually physically what we are doing. And please let me know if you can hear the voice here, because that would be interesting to get some feedback as soon as I start it. So that would be great if you could let me know, Lorna. I'll start it right now.
It's been likened to a cross between a vacuum cleaner and a lawnmower. Attached to the hull, this machine is stripping off dirt, slowly cleaning an area the size of half a football pitch.
We've developed soft jets, so that's a whole new method. We've used very low pressure jets, but we use seawater, and it's only seawater and electricity to drive some cleaning discs that moves over the surface, and they are situated on this submarine.
The waste is pumped back to a collection tank, removing the need for divers or the cost of a dry dock. Keeping them afloat is good for the cargo business and saves money.
We estimate through this we could save over 10% in our fuel costs just by basically cleaning the bottom of the hull, keeping it clean just as you would to basically reduce the friction.
Environmentally, the risk of transferring live organisms around the world is much reduced. The residue collected is also valuable biomass fertilizer that once burnt creates electricity.
This waste has been freshly scraped off the hull of this ship. It's then bagged up for processing. Half a ton of this muck is enough to power one light bulb for over 5 years.
Until now, a vessel of this size might get a spring clean every couple of years. That can now be completed every 6 months.
There are many different rules that apply to different ships and so on, but we do have very high standards here, and we're trying going forwards to make sure they get a higher still, because we recognise we have an impact on the city locally, and we're trying to reduce that impact going forwards.
If every ship passing through the port were cleaned in this way, it would help power around 100 Southampton homes a year. Alistair Fee, BBC South Today.
And as they mentioned there on BBC, the problem of biofouling isn't something that is known to everybody. But biofouling is basically like grass that grows underneath a ship's hull on its wetted surface as soon as you put it into the water. And for shipping, this has been identified as a 30 billion challenge. So preventing this from happening has been important. But the problem is very often that because they've taken out poisonous ingredients in biofouling, it's starting to grow more over the last 10 years. The other thing is that shipping or the world is standing ahead of the challenges I mentioned. And within the next 10 years, shipping has now put down mandatory requirements to cut 40% of a CO2 emission within the next 10 years. Already, we've done many things to optimize shipping. So there is very few things where you can actually cut 10% of those CO2 emissions. And that is where we hope to be part of the solution. To give you some background on the problem, it is something that has arisen in the last years. And in this illustration, you see one of them. Well, to the picture to the left, you see the polar bear and the penguins in great harmony. But the picture to the right is more like it would be if it was happening in reality. Because today, polar bears are living on the North Pole, penguins are living on the South Pole. And there is a natural barrier between these animals, luckily. Otherwise, it would be a party, as you can see to the right. But imagine if you took a ship and you took it to the North Pole, fill the ship with polar bears, and then travel to the South Pole and let all the polar bears go out on the Antarctic. Then that would be a massive challenge for the local penguins. This is just use an example, of course, but this is what happens all around our oceans and has increased over the last years because of the warming of our ocean. And Sir David Attenborough says that biodiversity collapse is the single biggest threat to the humankind. So CO2 and climate gases is of course a challenge, but an even bigger problem is if species starting to disappear. One of the big challenges with species being disappeared is that there are introduced non-native species. And for the shipping industry, we have long thought that the biggest reason for that we transport alien invasive species is through ballast tanks on ships. However, later research now that comes just the last years show that, for example, in New Zealand, 69% or more of introduced new species to the country of New Zealand has been species that has been hitchhiking in the biofouling of ships. And that is why biofouling is playing a vital role to stop biodiversity collapse, as well as mitigating it or do something about it is reducing large amounts of CO2. The current problem is that current practices has been very unfriendly to the environment, so to say. So that has meant that many ports are now have prohibited over the last years traditional in-water cleaning. This to the left is the way it's been happening normally. So it's been divers in the water with brushes that has removed the non-native species and biofouling, and also, as you see, a lot of the coating. And this has then been spread around to the surrounding water, meaning a huge increase in local pollution, and also that the ports becomes a hub for alien invasive species. Additionally, over the last years, we've seen that regulation is playing a part, and that is also something we're going to see ahead. In 2008 was an important year because then TBT, which was a poisonous ingredients in coating, were banned. And that meant that biofouling started to become a bigger problem to the shipping industry because there were less protection against biofouling. In 2017, or even before that, Australia has worked on regulation where they are saying that ships with too much biofouling and non-native species are not getting entry into our ports. And on the other side, ports, as I mentioned, are saying stop to traditional in-water cleaning because of the pollution. So what we've been seeing is that shipping is pretty much going towards a catch-22, where on one side, many serious ports are having strict environmental regulation and prohibit traditional in-water cleaning because they pollute. And on the flip side, more and more countries are demanding that the ships that's sailing into the ports are clean because they don't want to have an introduction of non-native species. So this is where we have tried to play a role. So since over the last 12.5 years, we've developed ECOsubsea, and basically, as you saw in the video, it is a movable trailer that is 18 meters long that holds a robot that you can remotely control from the shore side. And this robot, as soon as the ship comes in, you lower this robot into the water and it goes back and forth just like you would if you were cleaning or using the lawn mower in your garden. And continuously, there is 1,500 liters being pumped up to the shore side with all the biofouling and the waste so that it is filtered out through a process system. So continuously, this water goes through a sedimentation process, 2 particle removal processes, UV treatment to take care of any microscopic non-native species, and then is discharged to sea. And there is also a micro step where it's possible, in case a coating is compromised, to use a micro filtration down to 1 micron. And continuously then, the dried waste, as you saw, was shown on BBC, is taken out. And typically we gather about 50 to up to 1,000 kilo of this waste from one ship. And in Southampton, or actually in the Solent, we are having a close collaboration with Veolia, where they use this in their biogas energy production plant over at Marchwood. In the port of Southampton, we have currently served the longest. We used 2 years to be granted the environmental permit because they have extremely strict standards, and they have prohibited traditional in-water cleaning since 2010. But when we were allowed in there in 2014, and since then we have collaborated very closely with the port to ensure that we are not only a company that is operating there, but we see that we need to collaborate in order to take the world forward. And one of the things we've done, as we have been cleaning, we have been mapping the sediments on the bottom of the port to ensure that the footprint from the cleaning operations are followed carefully up. And as you can see here, on some of the mappings we've done, we found that the levels of copper and zinc, which is the most important key indicators, is similar or actually improved in the area where most of the vessels have been cleaned. And this underlines the long-term positive effects that the cleaning has, because all of the waste is gathered, and then the port is actually efficiently taking control of the biofouling and the non-native species that is hitchhiking with the ships, because the ships are kept cleaner, and therefore there is less non-native species, less biofouling on the ships. And the good thing to add to it is, and by the way, they are saving up to 10% CO2 and NOx and SOx. We've also developed a port biofouling monitoring program, where we monitor all the ships and send the port detailed reports on all the vessels that's been cleaned, all the activities, the amount of biofouling has been collected, water sample, sediment sample, etc., etc. And over these years, we've been lucky to now work with more and more ports. I'm very happy to see that Jerry is here from Portsmouth International Port, and I look forward to learn more about their further initiatives. But they are one of our collaborational partners that we have started to work closely with, and that we look forward to disclose more interesting opportunities in the years ahead. We often call this the port cleanup. So far, the status is that north of 1,000 vessels has been saved, served, not saved. That is both by cleaning or inspections. There has been more than 50,000 kilos of grass and biofouling has been collected from these ships, and it has been saved from these ships that has been cleaned, and more than 3 million tons of CO2. We are collaborating with ports, and we see the Solent area as being the center of excellence for our operations. And what we are looking at now is to global expansion, but using then the competencies in the southern UK with remotely operating these cleaning stations when we put them out, because of the technology that is possible today. The goal is not to save 3 million tons CO2, even though that is a lot, and that is great. But we have an ambition about cleaning 10,000 ships a year. That is a lot, and that is ambitious. But that would mean that we would save up to 50 million tons of CO2 every year. And that constitutes to all the annual emissions from the whole country of Norway. So that was a short run through about EcoSubsea. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I would love to hear any thoughts, input, or questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ronald.
Hi, that was fantastic, Tor. Absolutely fascinating. I'm sure there are questions from the floor. If people just want to unmute themselves and ask a question.
Yeah, hi, Lorna, Ken Hickling here.
Hello, Ken.
In my past life, I used to work for a paint company, that made the red stuff and the black stuff we see in the picture. One of the things that a lot of ports were very tight on in years gone by with regards to hull cleaning systems was the washings arriving at the bottom of the berth. And I see you've got a suction system that kind of hoovers it all up and hopefully meets some of the port's very stringent requirements, particularly in America. And I do wish you well with this. But of course, you're also, and you mentioned it, you're also pulling off a little bit of the paint which contains active chemicals. You talked about possibly using them as fertilizers. I see that as a bit of a challenge, but obviously the current solution is you're burning it in the biomass incinerator, which presumably has a sufficiently high enough heat that it deals with this chemical challenge. But I'd like to just know a little bit more about that and where you see, soft ports, if you like, easy ones that are less tightly controlled on this issue, and the ones that you think are maybe a tighter challenge.
Yeah, that's very good questions there, Ken. And and it is also extremely important issues that we have been working towards. And I remember when we approached AP Møller Maersk in 2008, they had three main concerns. It was, you need to collect all the residues, you need to be gentle to the coating, and it needs to be safe. So that being gentle to the coating is an extremely important part for us. So the way we've gone around it is that we worked for 4 years to develop the prototype. And we've developed something called the soft jets. So it's a little bit like shaving, because as you said, before a cleaning method, like you see here on the picture, it was abrasive. It was taking off coating. And then, as you say, Ken, even when you're then vacuuming it up, it will be full of coating. But what we've done is that we developed the soft jets. So instead of then an abrasive way to removing what's growing on, it's like when you're doing shaving. So it's extremely tough on the hair, but it is very gentle to the skin. And technically, the way we managed to do that is that the soft jets, instead of going directly onto a surface, like you are describing, Ken, that has been for all time a huge problem to the shipping industry, we are shooting the jets in parallel with the surface. And this means that it becomes much more like shaving. So it's gentle to the coated surface, but it's very harsh on the biofouling. And that is also the reason why it's possible to use it in biogas production. Because as you rightly say, if this stuff that we were taking out were full of coating, then it would be too messy to be used in that. So that was an extremely good question, and one of the key challenges that we've technically solved that sets this apart. The other thing is, of course, the collection. Whereas you have had partial collections over the years and several solutions that has actually claimed to be environmental friendly, but have not really been in operation. And that is where we have our core patents and where we've solved this task that the US Navy actually tried to solve since the 60s. And that is basically because we are collaborating with nature, with vacuum, and also with hydrodynamics. So instead of cleaning somewhere and capturing outside, we have done it in one principle, and it is actually illustrated in our logo. It's hidden in our logo. So instead of cleaning here and collecting here, we are cleaning around, and then we put the suction in the middle. So it's just simplifying it, and thereby anything that is loosened from the surface, it's going straight into the suction because it's 6 times more water being pumped out than is being pushed into the water. And that then touches on the second question that you had, Ken, which is extremely important as well. That ports, as we see them, are in 3 categories. It is the strictest regulated, like Southampton, Portsmouth, and you have several European ports now aiming at this, that says we are not permitting local pollution from the coating or the non-native species. You have some, and that is mostly in the Asian countries, that has half regulated or are actually also permitting open loop solutions. But we're seeing now, and I did not touch much on that, we're working very closely with the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, on the globe filing initiative, and we were one of the founding partners there, because that is international regulations that is coming, and they are pinpointing that exact thing, that you need to have full capture. And that is also why when you're taking then control of the biofouling, because if you don't have full capture, then you're not in a way putting things in status quo. You're increasing the problem, because then you might be cleaning off biofouling, which is fine on the ship, but at the same time you ensure massive pollution of the local ports, which is then a big negative. So very good questions there, Ken, and I hope I elaborated around them to answer.
Any other questions for Tor?
Yeah, Tor, thank you. How long does it take to do a ship's hull, 150-meter ship?
That's also a very good question, and it's so depending on the coating condition and also the amount of fouling. So if it's 50 kilos or if it is 1,000 kilos. But to give you a rough idea, on average, I think for a 200-meter ro-ro that is 7 meter deep, we are using 9 hours. So that would be then approximately 150 kilos of biofouling taken off. So the ambition here is to be able to serve a vessel when it is doing cargo operations. So you don't take off the vessel doesn't need to stay there longer just to wait for this operation, but then they can get it as something that is just part of the normal operating schedule.
So presumably if you were to go to a company and the company said, can you keep our hulls clean by doing a couple of hours every month, is that something that you would do in sections? Yes, and that's also an interesting point. And we see amongst other those leading ship owners like Carnival UK, with them they are coming with, they want to ensure that their vessels are at best condition at any time to have full control of the alien invasive species and to gain optimal efficiency. So they are doing exactly that, where we might have 4-hour intervals, but still their vessels are very big, but they then keep it clean at an earlier stage rather than being, they're proactive rather than being reactive. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions, folks?
Yeah, hi Tor. My name's Blue Davies. I'm from British Marine. We're the trade association for the marine leisure industry. I was wondering, this is quite large scale, obviously, in ports. This is something you can kind of scale down to, like mariners in boat yards as well?
We have, thank you for the question. We have the core patterns down to a cup that is 40 centimeters in diameter. Currently, we are serving most vessels that is between 50 and 400 meters. So the answer is that it's possible, but it isn't an application that we have readily available now. But what we are doing now is that we are these days, or we're starting now January, February, to have a capital raise of up to $50 million. And then this segment is one that we are looking to approach as well, because like you're saying, this is getting more and more an important area, and it's getting more and more focused on as well when it comes to the coating that is on it, and also the spread of non-native species with more leisure crafts, etc.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure that's something that a lot of our members, our marina members, may be interested in as it is rolled out and developed. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we go for one more one more question, perhaps for Tor, if there is one more, then I think we need to move on a little bit.
Yeah, I've got my hand raised. Tor, I just wondered, am I right in thinking you're based in Norway?
Yes, or we are coming from Norway, from the west coast of Norway.
Yeah.
And then our operational center is Southampton and the ports in the south of UK.
Okay, but the company's registered in Norway, is it? I only ask because we, so I run a green tech and blue tech cluster in this part of the world, but we're members of the International Clean Tech Network, so I didn't know if you'd come across Nordic Edge as well at all. They're more of a smart cities cluster, but we represent about 16,000 SMEs and across the world, and we're trying to support SMEs in various ways to grow in the clean tech area. So I didn't know if you come across them. That was all.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting input. It would be great to learn more about those, David. That is not someone we have been in touch with. So that's very, very interesting tip. And I think also, I mentioned collaboration. I think that is so important, rolling things out now, because the goals we are setting globally in Europe and nationally, they're so large and we don't have solutions for them yet. So I think it is through these collaboration and often cross sectors as well that give us the opportunity to solve them all. So thank you so much for the tip, David, and it will be very interesting to get in touch as well after this.
Well, good luck, and hopefully, you know, if there's support out there, we can help find it. So
fantastic. Thank you, David.
Brilliant. I think we need to move on because we've got so much on the agenda. Tor, that was fantastic. Thank you. Absolutely fascinating. If anyone's got any other questions that they didn't get a chance to ask, if you want to put them into the chat, we'll make sure that we pass it on to Tor after the meeting. I'm sure he'll come back to you directly. David from, sorry, you were going to say something.
We're just saying thank you so much, Lorna, and thank you everybody for listening in and for the good questions.
Oh, no, it was fantastic. Thank you. David Howard from Southampton City College. Can I hand over to you next?
Certainly. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to this meeting. My name is Dave, and I'm on the Apprenticeship Business Development team at City College Southampton. And I'd just like to take 5 minutes to tell you about an event at our college. On Wednesday, February the 10th, we're holding a virtual employers event at 12:30 as part of National Apprenticeship Week. This will give companies the chance to listen and ask questions regarding apprenticeships to ensure that they have the correct information to enable them to make the right decision when thinking of employing an apprentice. There are a lot of myths concerning apprenticeship, what hours they can work, rates of pay, etc., and also the fear of the unknown when considering employing one or more apprentices. And the event is set out to eradicate these so that you can make a balanced choice. Our aim is to show companies who are maybe thinking of employing an apprentice how the structure works, whether it be day release or block release, for example, and some of the advantages as well of employing a young person. We work hand in hand with the company involved to ensure if there is a problem at some stage, how we can help each other to overcome this. And some of you are probably now thinking, why has he mentioned a negative? Well, we like to keep things real, and problems do arise from time to time. But rest assured, we have a dedicated employer department that is there to assist companies with any problems, large or small. It's not just a case of getting a student into the college onto whatever course. It's about ensuring, from our point of view, both the employer and the student have a successful journey. Also, there will be details on the fact that City College offer a free recruitment service to employers to assist in finding the right candidate, as it is very important to have an applicant who has the right attitude and enthusiasm and who is prepared to go the extra mile in their role as much as good qualifications. These students are assessed on English and maths, as well as interviewed by experienced staff to assess their suitability for the role. We find a lot of companies like to use this service as it saves them both a lot of time and money. We'll also be discussing ways companies can upskill their current workforce with apprentices, and we'll be offering advice on funding and the different age groups involved, as not all companies like to employ a 16 to 18-year-old for various reasons, including insurance matters and health and safety. There are a few incentives available at the moment that you may be unaware of, and we will guide you through them to illustrate how you can claim them. One task is also to discuss the apprenticeship levy and non-levy employers and what funding rules and costs apply to the 3 different areas that are involved, to show how simple it is to break down and understand. We have invited a company called Mega Mechanical, who have kindly agreed to give a short presentation on their experiences with apprentices, both good and bad. Again, we like to keep it real. There will be a question and answer section for companies to ask any questions that they have. So the event is Wednesday the 10th of February at 12:30 for employers, and we're also running an event on Thursday the 11th of February for students who are considering becoming an apprentice in a similar format to the employers. All details are available on our College Southampton's website, where you can register for the event. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Has anyone got any questions for David? Any comments or? Not seeing any hands up. The full information about that event is on the Southampton City College website.
It's on our website. If you go to the City College website, all the details are on there, and you just press a couple of buttons and you can register for the event. Okay,
and that is on the 10th of February, which is in Apprenticeship Week.
It is, yeah. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you. If I can just add to that, if I, with my Maritime UK hat on, I was going to say head on, only one hat, only one head, two hats. I'm gathering video case studies of apprentices to video interview case studies of apprentices to use on social media, websites and so on in Apprenticeship Week. So if there's someone that is working for your organisation, either who is an apprentice now, or actually I'm quite interested in talking to people that are further along their career pathway who started out as an apprentice. So if anyone's got leads or someone that works in their organisation that they would like to talk to about that, it's 5 questions in 5 minutes. I'm not going to take up a lot of their time, and I'll interview them through a Zoom meeting, something like that. So if you pass that on to me, that would be very useful. Okay, so moving on through the agenda, our next speaker is Jerry Clarke from Portsmouth International Port, who's going to carry on with the clean maritime theme, but this time we're talking about clean air. So can I hand over to you, Jerry?
Lorna, thank you. I'm going to try and sort out my screen, bring it back up to the top and present. Good morning, my name's Jeremy Clarke. I'm a pilot assistant harbour master at Portsmouth International Port. And I need to share screen, won't be a tick. Nope, that's not it. Right. I need to put this on share screen, coming up. Okay, has anyone got that on the screen? Okay, thank you. Right, let's get that out of the way. As I say, good morning. I'm a port pilot. I've worked in Portsmouth since 1994. I came from deep sea. I am an apprentice, probably one of the oldest ones going, but I went to sea as an apprentice in 1979 in a company called Blue Star Line that used to specialize in bananas, which you'll see in the top right-hand picture there. So I spent my formative years driving refrigerated cargo ships, and that's pretty much what I do in most of my working life today. So today we're talking about what we've been doing in Portsmouth about air quality and how far back it goes. So do jump in if there's anything that I miss. Okay, now some of you may recognize this. Most of us, I hope, will recognize it. This young lady was shown to have died as a result of poor air quality, or it was one of the causative problems with it. And that's changed the game insofar as ports are concerned anyway. I go so far back in ports that I can remember when the local authority would come and put a sensor at the port gate, and we would object on the basis that it was too close to the emissions of the HGVs as they came out. Well, things have changed now. We can no longer stick our head in the sand. For those of you who at any time studied law, you'll remember Rylands versus Fletcher, which essentially is that if you bring something onto your property that damages something else, then ultimately you will take responsibility for what happens. It won't take long before people start realizing what ports are bringing in. They're starting to realize it already. And we have to get a handle, and we'll get a handle on that by starting to measure. But that certainly last year was a wake-up call for all of us who are dealing with air quality. In Portsmouth, and I'm hoping there's none of you will actually recognize that shot because it'll be showing you your age. But this is the original Portsmouth commercial docks. The age of photography, we could take a guess at this as being 1860s, maybe 1870s, but that's a commercial dock that's dealing with what was needed at the time, and that will be provisions, sail making, rope making. but it was in for a shock. It was in for something that we're dealing with every day in ports, which is change. This is the same dock, not 30 years later, and this, of course, will be the advent of steam when the Navy, and this is Portsmouth, so we're talking about the Navy, were changing or had changed from sail to the use of coal in the steam age. So suddenly a commercial port that was dealing with rope and canvas had to start dealing with coal. A little bit of background for what we're doing. And this is us today. Totally different, not the same area of the port as you would guess, larger ships. You're looking pretty much in there in the totality of Portsmouth on the marine side. So 5 ro-ro berths, roll on, roll off. All of those vessels, well, apart from one small cruise liner you can see there, but all of those vessels have this unique ability for the cargo to drive itself on and off, which is very good for a port. We're a landlord port. We just rent out areas of the port for people to operate. So we are about throughput. We're not about storage. To the right of the picture, you'll see the traditional berths. And if you see Will's background, you'll see that the ship in his background is actually on that northern berth. So if we talk about port air quality, you can't talk about it without knowing what you're putting out. We can guess. I've just completed the port's first 2 carbon audits for 2018, using that as a base year. And then 2019, trying to assess the carbon output of every port operation. When I say every port operation, we're using the guidance given by DEFRA. And you have a choice as to which you choose. You can choose to measure that which you gain a financial advantage of, or that which you're operating yourself and working in operations. We chose to measure everything out of which we make a financial advantage. So our port air quality strategy went to government in December. Before it went to government, it went to the council. Those of you who know the port will be aware that this is a municipal port. So the ownership model for a port at the moment is very interesting, because our owners are the people of Portsmouth. Now, there's only 3 or 4 large ports left in the UK where the locals own them. The other general ownership models are private, which will be Associated British Ports, and trust ports, of which Dover and Tyne will be the most obvious ones to you. As a municipal port, our owners are the people whom we are polluting. So our obligation, a moral obligation to do this, is somewhat stronger than perhaps the ownership models of other ports. The guidance we used, I copy here, it's very good, it's very simple, it's short, and it really is an idiot's guide, which is something as a pilot I tend to need when I'm not driving ships. I don't say that unself-consciously, because this will take you through the whole lot. You don't need consultants. As a pilot, I'm in a unique position in that I climb up the ship's ladder and I ask the captain how much fuel he's using. The point at which the pilot comes on board is the point at which the chief engineer comes up with his fuel figures for the voyage, because when the pilot gets on board, they ring end of passage on the what used to be the telegraph. They'll actually do it over the phone, and that's the point at which the chief engineer will put his figures together. So I've got a very good handle on how much a ship uses at full sea speed, and then when it comes into the port, which is where I'm interested, when it has to come down below the 10-knot speed limit. So I don't have to go through all the equations that a consultant might have to use in assessing the emissions from a ship. The Port Air Quality Strategy talks about the 3-year review. It's a public-facing document. You put it on your website, you explain what you're producing, and it does ask you to produce a target reduction. Now, one of the things about a country's economics is that what DEFRA allows you to do is intensity-based targets. So when we talk about carbon reduction, we talk about intensity-based reductions. So we're looking at reductions in carbon per ton across the quay, per ship, per freight vehicle. At the moment, no one is looking at absolute reductions because no one knows entirely how to do it. And it does include the option currently to offset. So it is a document that works for ports. It cuts things into scopes. You divide your emissions into scopes, scope 1, 2, and 3. You'll see them there. I won't go through them. To those of you who deal with environmental concerns and measurements, they'll be pretty obvious. You're talking about your direct consumption of electricity and gas. You're talking about the emissions that come as a result of what you produce, which is cars and lorries coming into the port. And you're talking about scope 3, which is essentially everything else. I'll give you a little bit of a slip there into what we've been doing. You could argue for hours, if you're a port, as we are, that's a lot of cross-channel traffic, out of which we make most of our finance, but also we invite companies to come in bringing refrigerated cargoes, bananas. Now that's a 4,000-mile journey. Where do you start measuring the carbon that they're chucking out? How much responsibility do you take for that carbon? And we've been cooperating with Solent Southampton University in this because the money that's gone into the air quality sensors comes from the Intro 2Cs program, which is coming to a close, but we had some, that paid for £500,000 worth of sustainability items on our new link span, which was electric start motors, LED lighting and other bits and pieces. But some of our partners didn't fulfill their criteria and some money was left sloshing around. That was awarded to Portsmouth and the Port of Ostend to put in our air quality monitors. But you still have to decide where you start measuring your carbon from. You'll see there's 3 levels there. As it wasn't immediately obvious, I measured 3 from the Nab Tower inwards, which is 10 miles out, to the Outer Spit Buoy. The Outer Spit Buoy is where Southampton traffic will keep going, but my traffic will turn right to go into Portsmouth. And then inside the port from 100 meters off the quay to being alongside. Now that's an interesting one because the Port Air Quality Strategy tells you that you can choose your area. And one of the areas it recommends is the statutory Harbour Authority area. Well, we're in a naval port, so the Navy only give us responsibility as a statutory Harbour Authority to 100 meters off the quay. So if you look at the plan I'm showing you now, that's our statutory Harbour Authority area. Now, that would be going with the words of the Port Air Quality Strategy, but not the spirit of it. And here you'll see the Camber Docks, where again, it is our statutory Harbour Authority is the Camber Docks, but just around the corner is the harbour entrance, which is very, very busy. And I don't believe that in good, I don't think it would be morally right or statistically right to ignore the harbour entrance. So what we've done is we've used the area from the Outer Spit Buoy inwards, which you'll see is the red buoy on the southeastern part of that ellipse, right up to the top end of the port. So we've assumed responsibility for all port operations, ships, cars, and everything else out of which we make any financial kind of gain, and it's in that area. Okay, the measures we're taking, and forgive the number of slides, I'm just going to keep talking. We talk about the use of standards. The reason I mention standards is this. In 2019, the port won the Chartered Quality Institute Organization of the Year, Quality Organization of the Year. That wasn't accidental. We run British standards and international standards here at the port. And the chap you see quite here, okay, it's John Feltham. He's our genius. This is the boss. This is our commercial director. This is our engineering manager. This is myself. This is the port operations director. This is the lady who runs finance. This is the lady who helps run Portico. And this lady's the PA who keeps us all in line. So it's a group effort, but it's to do about standards. It's to do with quality. And because we've got that quality shell, we've got the confidence to start going public on what we do with our air quality. I won't say it's a brave thing to do, but what you saw, the figures for the tonnage of carbon produced, they were put into the executive summary of our port air quality strategy. And that was as a result of the leader of the council, who ultimately is the representative of our owners, saying that's where it should go, and that's brave. Okay, air quality sensors. We found a local technologist. We went through a very thorough bidding process, which as a city council we're obliged to do. Barter for Things, a local technologist, had already put in LP1, low power wide area network throughout the city to read automated water meters for the local water providers. He's managed to combine that with a system of off-the-shelf sensors that gives us a cheap method of continuously monitoring our air quality. The budget that I had from the Interreg 2Cs program, when I went out to the market to look at what I could get, it looked like I could put these sensors up, but with the subscriptions and the cost of subscriptions, we could only get 2 or 3 years worth. By using Barter for Things, a local technologist who's found us cheaper solutions, I now have a permanent system that cost in the region of 20,000 and is going to cost me less than £2,000 a year to keep and maintain. I'm not saying I'm cheap, but the reason for doing this was to put something up that would be permanent and not just something I could afford for 2 or 3 years. I'm sorry if there's some of the air quality people listening at the moment, but some of the sensors, they wanted £2,000 a year just to give us access to the software and the details on each one of the sensors. So we were looking at £20,000 a year just to keep the sensors running. What we've put in the port and what we've got on our sensors is the usual standards. We're looking at measuring fine particles, PM2.5s, PM10s, nitrous oxides, and everything you see down there. Now, the big thing for ports, we know that our nitrous oxide levels are not the cause of the clean air zone that's being imposed in Portsmouth. We know that that's road traffic. But we're also aware that this big shadow hanging over all of us, which is the PM particulate matters 2.5 and particulate matter 10s. And that's what I particularly want to get a handle on, because that's what is going to be proving to be causing the worst health disbenefits to our local population and to anyone around a port. The position of the sensors in the port, essentially, we're about 30 hectares. This is the what you call lift-on, lift-off area around here, which is the, if you like, not old-fashioned, but certainly the older style ships. And up here is the continental ferry port, which is the roll-on, roll-off part of the port. We can't get away from local context, and we'll get through it briefly, because most ports will find their local authority, their interactions with them as when something goes wrong, when the local authority says to them, you're chucking out too much pollution, you're chucking up too much smoke. Well, our local authority are our owners, as I've mentioned before, and our owners have had a problem for a while with air quality. The regulations that you see here are what is actually demanded of the local authority, that they do something. What's not mentioned in there is the Clean Maritime Act, the Clean Air Act, Maritime 2050, the Clean Air Strategy, and the Port Air Quality Strategy that's demanded of the port. But these regulations have demanded action from the council in dealing with air quality management areas. Now, that's Portsmouth. It's not brilliant, but it shows you the air quality management areas, and those clouds, 1, 2, and 3, show you the port area. Now, those air quality management areas are the result of nitrous oxide levels being above government maximum levels. Now, none of them are actually close enough to the port for the port to be responsible. The consultants know that, and that's why the clean air zone starts to the south of the port. It's because they're measuring on the basis of nitrous oxides. But those areas are actually air quality management areas. They are obligatory. You measure your air quality, and if you exceed maximum, you are obliged to declare air quality management areas. And if you can't get rid of it, the government will impose a clean air zone. This was a result. 2018, the World Health Organization identified Portsmouth as one of the 8 most polluted cities in the UK. And we get all sorts of information about it. As a port, it affects us because it will cause the charging of non-compliant vehicles. Now, the port itself is to the north of the clean air zone, so we're not going to get hit. But as I mentioned earlier, we're taking responsibility because of areas where we take a financial gain. And we take a financial gain from Whitelink. And the Whitelink zone in the Camber is definitely going to be within the clean air zone. So it does affect us, affects income, and it affects our customers, one of which is Whitelink. The strategy in policy terms, what we're doing, well, there's a whole list there, and I'll go through them a little later on, but we're maximising on our solar panels. We have an existing 50 kilowatt power on top of the terminal. We're currently putting in a 750 kilowatt power on the roofs around the port, as well as storage batteries, very large, which will store our renewables and allow it to be distributed around the port. One of these is funded by Innovate UK, and a company called Swan Barton are putting in artificial intelligence and machine learning so that we know where to put the renewables around the port when we need it. A previous grant from Europe has given us a seawater heat transfer pump that uses the difference between seawater temperature and air temperature to heat the terminal in the winter and cool it in the summer. The toilets are all seawater flushing. We've got the new link span as energy as efficient as we could make it. The Galicia started running from Portsmouth a month or 2 ago. She's one of the most efficient and energy efficient ships currently running. A couple of dates are out there, but we've got 2 new LNG ships coming in, and we're talking about provision of LNG to them at the moment. Portico, that operates the traditional ships I mentioned earlier, have stopped using diesel and started using Shell gas to liquid fuel, which is chucks out less carbon and less pollutants. Actually, on Friday, we're taking delivery of the replacement port electric vehicles, which will be using our own port renewables from those batteries I've mentioned. We're talking about port vehicles already Euro 6 compliance. We won't let contractors into the port until they're Euro 6 compliant. Porticro across the road have converted their forklift trucks to electric. Their latest purchase of an enormous mobile crane is dual fuel electric and diesel. The air quality monitors we've talked about, they're going up at the moment. The battery is being, well, it's being delivered, it's being funded, and the software is being developed as we speak. One of the big things we're doing at the moment, well, big things, sorry, one of the things that's taking up quite a lot of time is cooperations with local universities. As we're starting to realize the things that we need to start measuring, essentially we're making the port into a laboratory to really find out what a port is chucking out. And that's University of Portsmouth, we're cooperating on marine noise, for instance, which is another kind of pollution, which as a port we hadn't even considered. So the solar panels, that's not us, but if you don't know what a solar panel is, it's a picture. 750 watts. By June 2021, we'll have those commissioned and running. It'll be providing 1/3 of the port's electricity by the end of this year. That's my battery being delivered on a box. It's a 20-foot container with lithium-lead batteries in, which have a fast charge, slow charge capability. Funded by Innovate UK, and the Catapult Energy Systems are cooperating with us on it. That should be going live at the same time as the 750 kilowatt battery solar panels become online. We have 2 planning applications in to put wind turbines up on the port, one for very tall ones, which I have hopes for, but ultimately will fail on the basis that we have the Royal Navy in place, and Defence of the Realm may ultimately dictate that we can't have the tall ones, which are more efficient than the small ones. But if we can't have the tall ones, I've got a planning application in for 25 lower than 15 metre height wind turbines with a vertical axis. Green walls, we've been looking at these for a while. Green walls are interesting because we see them going up around schools and they're aesthetically pleasing. The idea is that they pick up the dust that blows into them, and Professor Barbara Mayer from Lancaster University, I think, has proven that it'll pick up 126 milligrams of dust every square meter. And within that dust are the particulates that we're most interested in capturing. Now, the aesthetics of this is such as that it relies on rainfall to clean the leaves and then they start again. Well, I'm not worried about aesthetics, so we're cooperating with Portsmouth University to look at great big industrial size air filters to be put up externally that will capture particulate matters down to 0.1 micron. And we won't need to rely on rainfall to start it up. It will be a permanent feature. So we're looking at putting a prototype. It'll be the first time anyone's actually stuck one outside, but we want to know what we're chucking out and we want to pick up those particulates. You'll have seen, but this is the green wall. And this is mitigation, which is very hard to get funding for because the Committee on Climate Change put it right down at the bottom of their list of priorities. But for a port, that it is essential for the country's economy that it keeps running, mitigation is actually quite important. So getting it funded, particularly if you can do local offset, which I think paying money into an offset where they're going to fund the Amazon is wonderful, but paying money into an offset where you can actually do mitigation in your own port, I think would be favourite for us. The link span I talked about, it's nice to actually work on a project where you manage to get the funding as a project manager and then manage to bring in the actual new link span as a pilot. So that's me sat on the tug, dragging that one in to put it in place. And this is it being put into place on link span 4 prior to replacing the old one, which as you can see to the left. This is the Glacier, came in, as again, that was nice, brought that in, first pilot to bring it in, and we trialed it on all the berths. Immensely energy efficient, not LNG, but the next one's coming from Brittany Ferries are. And LNG is important, not simply because it burns less, produces less percent, 10% less carbon, but it chucks out a lot less particulate matter than burning heavy fuel oil, medium fuel oil, or marine gas oil. Now, everything that comes in is burning under 0.1% sulfur content because it has to, because of the emissions control area, but LNG is the big move for us. Globally, reduction in carbon, 10%, but locally improvement in port air quality, quite massive. That's her on the new link span. So new energy efficient ship on a new energy efficient link span. That's the port terminal, opened in 2010, probably the most sustainably advanced in the country. The seawater heat pump, actually I'll spin through that. I'm not going to talk about how it works, but it ramps up the difference in temperature between seawater and air temperature by 40 times the difference. So it can bring 1 degree in difference in air temperature between the seawater and the environment, the air environment, up to 40 degrees. Reductions in, again, mitigation, the Ringelmann chart, which you may see, if someone complains that an industry is producing too much black smoke, then a local health officer will come out, hold up the Ringelmann chart, and he'll measure the colour of your smoke against that chart and measure for how long you maintain that colour. Now, that's been going for many years, but that's something we're going to start doing on the port. Our port operations managers already said, yes, this is what we could do. Now, the interesting thing at a port is that you don't want to scare off your traffic, but you do want to save your local population from the effects of poor air quality if you can. So it is one thing to say to a company, please bring in the best ships you've got as far as air quality goes. But it's another thing at the operational level to go down and get them to say to the captain, actually, you're chucking out too much smoke, Captain. Could you have a chat with your engineer and get it reduced? Those are the port air quality sensors being put up by barter for things. And that is my last slide. So thank you for that. I'm going to stop sharing. And I don't even know for how long I've been rattling on.
Very interesting stuff, Jerry. I appreciate you putting so much time into that. It's kind of worrying and reassuring that Portsmouth International Port is leading the way on this in equal measures. Any questions from anybody for Jerry? You stunned them all into silence.
well done, Tor. You took all the questions.
Yeah. If you have got questions, as I said before, they occur to you afterwards, pop them in the chat. If you want to take some time to look at either of the presentations again in a bit more detail, Will is very kindly recording these now, and these meetings are going on to our YouTube channel, so you can revisit the meeting if once is not enough for you, or you've got colleagues who would find that useful. Okay, so
sorry, I did have a quick question, if that's
okay, David. Yes, please do.
Only that, Jerry, I mean, we spoke before, but obviously the thing that's, you're very busy, you've got a full-time job as a pilot. The thing that's driven this is access to finance, which obviously you've done very well through things like Interreg, which have now dried up. But clearly, if you had more money, you could do more stuff. That seems to be the ceiling, not your imagination. And indeed, all of us would wish to see our ports leading the way on this. And it's fantastic that we've got one of our ports that is doing so much already. But obviously, clearly, there's lots more that could be done. So maybe a difficult question, but what's your top three in terms of your wish list, so that those here could think about how they could support this fantastic endeavour in our region?
Okay, thank you, David. Well, again, I'd talk about our ownership model. The reason I'm able to continue doing what I started doing 20 years ago is the leader of the council, and the council form most of the board of the port, and they've said, no, we will not drop our green aims simply because we have a crisis with COVID and other financial crisis. We will keep this up. So it does come down to the ownership model. For those who work in private ports and other ports, usually the first thing to go out of the window when the money gets tight is the sustainability agenda. That hasn't happened in Portsmouth. My top three, well, I mean, we're very lucky in that our customers are paying. Brittany Ferries are bringing in these fantastic new LNG ferries, and that I would say was our top line. We have to step up and provide the LNG bunkering here in Portsmouth. So that's top line for us, to help them run those fuel efficient ferries. Again, for me, it's putting in mitigation measures. And now mitigation for those who work in the environment is a bit of a bad word, because what they want you to see is to remove the polluter completely. We can't do that. It's not just Portsmouth that has a benefit of Portsmouth, it's the whole UK, particularly with the constraints on Dover. So what I'd love to see is being to offset locally. So the money that would be, if you start offsetting your carbon, which we are allowed to do, and we do in a small way at the moment, I'd like to offset locally and pay for things like the particulate matter filters that we're looking at with Portsmouth University, and other mitigation measures to, I won't do a Trump and say put a wall around the port, but we could start with industrial size filters and start capturing. Initially, we need to find out what we're chucking out. But I think as the years pass, we are going to understand more and more about the damaging effect of particulate matter. So I'd really like to capture that, measure it, and then look at mitigation. So first is to support the LNG ships. Second is particulate measuring and mitigation of. And the third part would actually be, well, further mitigation, to be honest.
Can I just comment on that?
great talk. Actually, both talks really great. So it's Damon Teagle here from the Southampton Marine and Maritime Institute. Have you done any work with Matt Loxham from the School of Medicine in Southampton? Because he's been doing a lot of work with the geochemistry group at Knox on particulate matter and to define sources and what the actual particulate matter is. And I'm very happy to put you in contact with him.
No, Damon, that would be good. Knox is the National Oceanographic Centre you're talking about?
Yeah, well, it's actually the university group based there, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll be delighted to talk with him. We have public health works very closely with, we know currently we are up to date on the damaging effects of particulates, but the science isn't up to date, so it'd be useful to have that contact. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and he's a very interesting bridge between sort of environmental geochemistry and medicine and physiology. So they're both working out what the particles are and actually what they do to epithelial tissues and stuff.
Well, one of the reasons we're putting in the air quality sensors isn't just to measure what we're chucking out. It gives us a management tool. Now, we know we've got the air quality management areas in Portsmouth because of the peak traffic. So if we have the atmospheric conditions that cause pollutants to stay at a low level and we're in commuter time, and we can say, well, actually pollutants are at too high a level, we will ask the ship to come in 20 minutes later to avoid peak commuter time. We're actually talking about using that as an operational tool. It's how we use it, and we still have to develop. So yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Lorna.
Standard. Thank you very much, Jerry. That was really interesting. Any further questions? If you want to pop them in the chat, we'll pass them on to Jerry, or I'm sure you can get in contact with him directly at the port. We're running a little bit short of time now. We do keep packing these agendas. So I'm going to very quickly hand over to Leslie from Fareham College, who wants to talk to you about a skills boot camp offer that she's bidding for. Leslie, are you there?
I am, yeah, and a huge thanks for inviting me and squeezing me into your tightly packed agenda, because I know it was short notice. So I'll give you a whistle-stop tour, and then anybody who wants to get in touch afterwards, please do, either via Lorna, or I will put my details onto the chat. So basically, most of you will be aware the government's got lots of initiatives happening at the minute, and especially about getting the economy going, and also where businesses have possibly downsized, reorganized themselves, need to upskill people in new areas. How can they support that? So they've come up with something called a skills boot camp. Now, these are programs that can last up to 16 weeks. That doesn't mean they will be 16 weeks, but it gives us a time frame we can work in. They are aimed at level 3 to level 5 qualifications. So much more top level, because a lot of initiatives that come from the government is towards that lower end. So this is much more higher qualifications, hence why they're called a boot camp, because it's quite intense delivery. What we've also got is not just a qual. So actually what we can deliver is an industry competency, an industry ticket, something that's mandatory to your sector that you need that person to have, that can now be delivered through the boot camp. So it's not just a qualification, it might be something that's industry specific to your organisation and your sector. Now, the piece about the boot camps, which I really like, because although I work at Fareham College, I don't come from the FE sector, I come from the employer world. What's good about this is, right from the off, we need employers' engagement, and we need to understand what vacancies you're trying to fill. And then we need to co-develop a boot camp that will help you fill those vacancies. Now, I don't know about you guys, but where we've got vacancies at the minute, because of what's going on out there due to COVID, inundated with CVs. And some of them are very senior managers, some of them are middle managers, but what's missing is those essential skills we're actually looking for. So it's about you guys taking a look in your organisation, looking at those either hard to fill vacancies or vacancies where you're looking for somebody to have something specific, could we develop a bootcamp in line with yourselves to actually give people that skill set so you can fill those vacancies? And the whole bootcamp is free. So the whole program is free. So if it's an industry specific ticket, that's free. If it's a qualification, it's free. Now, it's not just about vacancies. What it's also about is upskilling. So a lot of businesses right now have, some people have had to make redundancies. Some people are changing actually what their outputs are. So they want their staff to have different skill sets or the ability to take on more responsibility. Again, I want you to think, do you have any of that? And would you need these people or require these people to have an additional skill set before you can put them into that role fully? Again, the government talk about core funding on this, but what they mean from core funding is your expertise, your time, because we would be working together to put together the program that would suit your organisation. Now, the sectors they're looking at is digital and technical, and there's an awful lot come under those two remits. Now, the time frame for this, like everything, is always tight. So I've got to get my bid in by the 12th of February. There's £18 million up for grabs in the digital lot, and there's £18 million up for grabs in the digital and technical lot. Now, I'm not in any way, shape or form saying I'm going for the whole big piece. I'd like a little chunk of it, and I'd like to be spending it on our employers here in the Southeast. So if you could go away, have a think. If there's something that we feel we could do within the maritime sector to put some boot camps on, we could have them roll on, roll off across the year. So it works with your future recruitment and what you're trying to do now or your future upskilling. Please drop me a line or let Lorna know. And I'd be really happy to talk to you guys. Short and sweet, there you go. Hopefully you've gained some time back. Thanks, Lorna.
These meetings are always packed, Leslie, and each month Will and I will say, let's control the agenda a little bit better this month, and then each month there's other things, but that was useful. Thank you, and I'm glad you got the chance to talk to our employers about it. Anyone got any questions for Leslie that they'd like to ask now, or any points to raise? I have got a little bit of time. I've just got some updates to do for you. No, absolutely stunned them to silence. Leslie, thank you for your time. So you can, there's Leslie's email is in the chat, or you can contact me and I'll put you in touch. So a couple of things from Solent Let, just for updates. I've already spoken to you about Apprenticeship Week, so we've done that bit already. Excuse me. Next month, we're doing things a little bit different. We said before Christmas that in the February meeting, it would be a networking meeting. Rather than two longer, sometimes more than, speakers, that we would allow 12 of you to have 5 minutes to talk about your business and perhaps your what's going on with your business and your organisation in the Solent. We haven't quite got 12 registered, so there's still some spaces there. If that's successful, we kind of come to this on the basis that if we were a network that was meeting over coffee and bacon sandwiches or Danish pastries or whatever, you would get that chance to talk to each other. And eventually, obviously, we hope that will be the case. So next month, it's a networking meeting, and 12 of you can have 5 minutes to talk about your business. And if that's really successful, then we'll repeat it. Maybe 1 in 3 meetings, we'll do that until everyone gets a chance to talk. So do contact Will if you would like to be one of those speakers. I have an update from Will. What else was I going to talk about today? My mind's gone blank. Apprenticeship Week we've already talked about. LEP updates. I've put a comment in the chat about the virtual work experience webinar for employers. We've talked about that a couple of times in these meetings. 21st of January, 8:30 till 10. And there's actually, the link is in the chat if you would like to come along to that and find out about it. The funding ERDF, Restart and Recovery Kickstart Tourism Fund, round 2 has now been completed, and we've issued 150 grant offer letters. So that's really good news, because that's funding going to businesses in the Solent that need our help. There's lots of different funding and support offers available. Best place to go is the Solent LEP website to access them. There's still the peer-to-peer networks, there's the Business Resilient Programme and the Brexit Support Programme consultation that you can get some support with. The only other thing that I was going to, I've got a question in the chat from Blue. Davis, if you're still there, you wanted to ask something about Kickstart or talk about Kickstart, I think.
Yes, Lorna, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, just a quick plug for British Marine. We are acting as an employer gateway for the Kickstart scheme. We've successfully submitted 2 applications with over 50 jobs included within those applications. And we're looking to submit another one, but we need a total of a minimum of 30 to submit our 3rd application. So if it's something you're interested in and want to know more about, it's a government scheme to get young people 16 to 24 who are on universal credit back into work. I can supply you with further details, but if it's something you might be interested in, I'll put the email address into the chat there. I've just referenced it, Kickstart scheme. Please drop me a line, Blue Davies at British Marine, and I will be in touch and follow up with you to give you a bit more detail. Thank you all very much. Thanks, Lorna.
No problem. And that's just about us, actually. We've come in a little early. So has anyone got any other questions or anything they'd like to add? Or
I think just quickly from me, hi everyone, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Hi, yeah. I run a drone aerial media and drone surveying company based in Portsmouth, and we've been focused for the last 4 years on providing drone surveying services and filming opportunities for sort of local businesses, and we're starting to look into innovating within the sector. We partnered up with Havant South Downs College to help deliver their T-levels in construction, and we're currently looking for opportunities to get into solving problems in the marine sector. So I hope you don't mind just doing a little plug to just a call for anyone who'd like to speak about drones in the industry, really. Be really interested if anyone's already using them, or if you're thinking about perhaps using them, that'd be great. We've also, Blue, the Kickstarter scheme is really good. We've successfully got 2 candidates through our HR company, so recommend everyone jumping on that where you can.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, Mike, maybe you'd like to have 5 minutes, then you could show us some of what you've done next time. Contact Will.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be really good. Yeah, fantastic.
We've shared a huge amount of information today, so will do a follow-up email with all the different links and email addresses and so on, and hopefully we've kept you interested this morning. I'd just like to say a really big thank you to all our speakers. So to Jerry and all that work that you put into that presentation, Portsmouth International Port, and for Tor, fantastic, thank you. Really interesting stuff. Southampton City College and Fareham College are both asking for your help, which is wonderful because we need to see that collaboration between employers and educators. And I think that's about us for today. So this is a record. I'm closing the meeting 3 minutes early. That never happens. I don't think we've got a date in the diary for February yet. Will and I will talk to Kevin and Stu and get that scheduled, and hopefully we'll get that in the update. Kevin, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, that's great, Lorna. Thank you to you and to Will for putting the programme together. Really interesting, and yeah, look forward to the short sessions in February. Should be good.
Brilliant. So networking in February, and then in March we're going to tackle diversity. Actually, there's another biggie. I don't know what we've got on the list for April yet. Something else may have come along by then, but hopefully we'll have good news about the Institute of Technology bid, and we might be talking to you about the next stage of that. So fingers crossed. So thank you very much. We'll see you in February. Keep well, everybody, and thanks for your time.